Well, hello. Welcome back to another exciting edition of Coffee with Stephen. So, this week's blog has to deal with the Bill of Rights, and specifically what we sometimes refer to as the passions of the majority. Not many people realize, but the Bill of Rights were specifically designed as a recognition of pre existing rights to the Constitution. By codifying these pre existing rights directly into the Constitution, the framers essentially codified the idea of minority rights. And when we think of minorities in present day, we tend to think in terms of people that happen to be of a different racial classification or a different gender classification than ourselves. Sometimes we'll extend that to a different economic classification. But minority literally means what it says. Some group of individuals that find themselves at a distinct disadvantage when it comes to numbers than the majority. Well, we live in a democratic republic. What that essentially means is that individuals don't vote for laws or policies. We elect people that vote for us, that create laws and policies. Well, because of that, obviously, the people that are in power are looking to have the largest numbers of people behind them. You all have heard the concept of, majority rules. Well, if majority ruled on a national level, then we could see genocide. If the majority felt that African Americans should be exterminated, then theoretically speaking, it would make sense that the majority would rule and African Americans would be exterminated. Or we could take any minority group. If we were to expand minority to also include minority of thought, if the majority of the population decided that they were socialist and they wanted to kill off all the capitalists, that would be completely within the realm of possibility. Or if we're not to take it to the most extreme levels, if the majority wanted to take the property of the minority, that would also be okay. And candidly, to a large extent, that's exactly what happens. Groups of individuals sit there and, get their people elected, and then using the power of the state, right? And that's a really important thing to understand. Using the power of the state, which is really nothing more than using the power of institutionalized violence and the threat of violence, the majority could then theoretically take from the minority. Well, to prevent this from happening, we enshrined the Bill of Rights, essentially saying that even though the different directions of the government, the different directions of society may change over time, minority rights are always going to be protected. There's a certain line that can't be crossed, all right? Well, last week there were two separate things, and I write about them in the blog. There were two separate things that our president stated that really kind of shook me to the core. The first one was a statement essentially saying that the first thing we should do is take away individuals' guns, and then we could go about doing due process. That's exactly opposite of the way it's supposed to be set up. That's extremely problematic because if you're doing that on a Second Amendment level, then what's to prevent you from doing that on a Fourth Amendment level or anything else for that matter? The other one was a statement directed at Senator Pat Toomey that he was afraid of the NRA. This bothers me to a large degree. I happen to agree, obviously, with the majority of the things that the National Rifle Association says. But the National Rifle Association is a civil rights organization. Their job is to ensure that our elected representatives are not acting in a way that's contrary to our basic fundamental civil rights. Why is it that an elected representative would be fearful of this? Unless you are going in contradiction to the Constitution itself, you should have absolutely no fear from anybody. And the reality is that if you're fearful of the NRA, you should just as easily be fearful of the ACLU or any other civil rights organization. In any event, I don't want to rant too long. I normally try to keep these things at about 3 minutes, and I'm already going up to about 4.5 minutes. So I encourage you to read the blog. As always, if you have any questions or you'd like to make any comments, you can email me at stephen@artemishq.com. And as always, train constantly, train consistently, train with purpose, and above all else, stay vigilant. Until next week, Thank you very much and stay safe.